Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My guest for today is Vandalia. And if you are in the chat, you may have seen that Vandalia is having some computer issues. And so we're going to try to make this work, but I don't know. It's a little bit iffy here. The problem is that his feed keeps freezing. And uh, with the feed freezing, I'm not able to hear him, and so I don't know if you'll be able to hear him or not. But if you can, great. We'll get the show going. If he's in and out, that's okay. We'll get what we can. But I did put a link in the description, so if anyone in the chat would like to come and join us, I would love to have a co-host, and then we can fill in if Vandalia's feed isn't working. Vandalia, can you say hello?
Hello.
Okay, very good. First question I have for you is your name. Vandalia, the first thing that comes to me is Vandalia onions. So is that what that came from? Are you there?
After said.
Okay, we all I caught I didn't catch any of that, whatever you said.
Out the camera.
Okay. So tell us
Is
about
it
your
better
name,
about
Vandalia.
camera?
Yeah, the
Is it
sound
better
is
about the
coming
camera
through now.
running?
Yeah, this is working much better. So tell us about the name Vandalia. Where'd that come from?
Sweet.
I guess that's not working either. It worked for a few seconds, but it's frozen again.
God.
Yep, Sandy, you're right. The sound is junk shopping. We're getting a sound every now and then, but not whole words, not anything that we can. Riri suggested a sound slideshow. That would take a while for Vandalia to type out everything he wants to say. Yeah, is there anyone in the chat that would like to come and join? If so, there is, I put a link up that anyone can come and join us. That would be great, and we can just have an open mic night, or maybe discuss some science subjects if anyone is out able to come and join. You want to give it a go again, Vandalia?
Can you hear?
I heard you say, "Can you hear?"
Type in chat.
There we go. Okay, let's try again. So, where's the name Vandalia from? And I think we're frozen again because we're still not hearing anything. This may be a very short stream, people, unless we can come up with something that we can get going on. How about if we'll just start talking about whatever anyone in the chat wants to talk about. We'll have a little bit of time of community building, and I'll just discuss whatever anybody wants to discuss. And Vandalia, you feel free to jump in at any moment. And if your sound starts working, we'll go ahead and switch over to talking with you. Sandy had a suggestion. Sandy says, type in in the chat, Vandalia. Yeah, that would work too. If you want to type in the chat and I'll put up on the screen what you have to say. Um, we'll see if we can make this work. And also in the meantime, as I said,
Mhm.
the link, and I'll go ahead and pin that link. Um, if anyone would like to join the show, I would be happy to have anyone there. The link is pinned if anyone wants to come and join in with us.
Ugh.
Please feel free to click on the link. Okay, I heard you again. How about the 1998? Is that the year you were born? Okay, we're still not getting any sound. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and try what Sandy suggested. Type in the chat and I'll put the slides up. Um, yeah, Sandy's right. That sounded like frustration. Hello, Thor. It's good to have you here as well. Thor, if you would like to jump in, we would love to have you. Okay, Vandalia is in the chat, has the chat working, and so we can see what Vandalia has to say by reading what's in the chat. And Sandy says, silence is golden, golden, not really in this case. Yep. I got my undergrad degree in mass media, and one of the things they taught us is there is nothing worse than dead air, especially with radio, because radio dead air means you don't hear anything. You don't even know if anything's going on. At least with television, you've got a picture and you can see that they're trying, but with no sound, there really isn't much you can do. I learned that once also when I was taking a communication class. And they said you can watch a movie or you can listen to a movie with no picture, but it's nearly impossible to watch a movie with no sound. If there's no sound, you just can't tell what's going on. Alan Highland says technical issues. Please stand by. Yep, that is right. And Sandy says dead air, good silent, not good. Silence at most times is lovely. Yep. Okay, so Vandalia, if you want to put in the chat a little bit about your name, how you came. Oh, here we go. What about silent films from the 20s? Yes, that's true. You could watch silent films and you could get that, but even with the silent films, they did have placards to have what the people were saying. But also the acting was very different in the silent films. People over dramatized what they were, their facial expressions since they weren't saying anything. So Vandalia, if you want to just start typing, tell us a little bit about your name, a little bit about your channel. I'll go ahead and put the slides up one at a time as you finish them, and we'll talk about each one. And we'll all get to know Vandalia a little bit and what he does on his channel. If you are not subscribed to Vandalia, the link is in the description for his channel. He does two different, he really has two kind of different niches there. He does science deniers, combating science deniers, as well as some stuff. I think it's with gaming. I'm not sure. To be honest with you, I looked at it, but I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it because that was not my thing. And I asked Vandalia to come on here specifically to talk about the combating science denial because that was more my interest. Ray Ray says Metropolis manages to be epic without sound. Okay, very good, very good. Okay, the name Vandalia 1998 came from the city I grew up in and the year I graduated. Both I used to hate since I was bullied in school, but turned it into something positive. Okay, very good. That is an interesting background. So I'm glad you were able to take that negative experience and turn it into something positive. Um, okay, we're waiting on hearing a little bit about Vandalia's channel and what Vandalia does, and we'll go ahead and put that on the screen as soon as it comes up. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, what's people's favorite issue of the week that was in the news this week? Um, you could pick whatever you like. Should we talk about the war in Ukraine? Should we talk about the disaster that is the Republican Party? Should we talk about the verdict against Trump? You people in the audience pick whatever you want as the next topic that we're going to talk about, and we will talk about whatever you want to talk about. We
Talk
heard that.
about why computers suck.
Okay, very good. We will talk about why computers suck, but we've got some audio. Go ahead and talk about your channel right now. And we lost it again. Okay, we'll have to wait for the slides to come up. Okay, BS not accepted said SNN's lack of integrity. I'm sure he means CNN. Just hit the wrong key. CNN's lack of integrity. Yeah, that was really something. I was really surprised at that. I don't know why they gave Trump a platform that isn't really, I think maybe what their intent might have been um, to try to show people just how absurd he is, which they did with one segment. There was a segment in that I did not watch the interview, but I did see this small segment where he claimed that if he was president, he could put an end to the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. And when the reporter asked him how would he do that, he just said, I would be the president. I can do that. And I don't know what he thinks the president of the United States is. I mean, he's certainly not the emperor of the world. I don't know why he thought he would be able to do that, but obviously he thinks he could. I really don't think he really thinks that. I think he thinks that he can get votes by saying that, and I don't think that Trump really ever says anything that he means. He just says whatever he thinks will get him votes. And YouTube Punk says all of Trump's answers were vague. Yes, exactly. When the reporter asked him specifically, how would you do that? He had no response. Just like when he said he knew more than the generals. Yeah, exactly. Ray says, didn't he also talk about post-birth abortions? I don't know. He might have. I did not watch the interview. I only saw a couple of clips from it. So it's entirely possible because that also would appeal to his fan base. And that is something that his fan base would definitely like. Here's what I think was the big mistake that CNN made with that interview, and that was the location. They should have done that interview in the studio or with a mixed audience, but they had an audience that was Trump supporters. And so it was very difficult to um, bring about the result of calling what Trump had to say into question when he's got his fan base there cheering him on and cheering on whatever he has to say. Vandalia says, I don't think anything Trump does, even if he gets accused of assault, will affect his supporters' opinions at this point. And you're right. And, Trump even said that exact same thing himself 6 years ago. He said that he could walk down the streets of New York and shoot somebody and it would not affect his campaign. And he's right. He's got a certain base that is just so loyal to him. They literally think he's God. They even have books about how he is the Messiah. He's the return of Jesus. There are people who literally think that he is God, and that just absolutely floors me. YouTube Punk says CNN wants to be Fox News Light. I don't know about that, but possibly. I admit I refuse to watch that interview, if that's what one calls it. Very good. Who is the bigger fool, the fool or the fools who follow him? Yep. Never have I heard so much lies in so short a time. Yep, that's Trump for you, you know. Okay, let's talk about something else. And BS not accepted is absolutely right. It's all about the profits. Maybe they're trying to expand their fan base. You know, CNN's trying to expand their fan base because certainly Trump supporters are not fans of CNN. But I don't know. I still think he's on his way out. I really think that the indictments in Georgia are going to come through, and this is all going to be like dominoes. The first domino was the finding him guilty in or him being indicted in New York, and the second domino was the rape case. And I think Georgia is going to be the bigger domino, and I think the first two dominoes falling facilitated the third one coming. Ray says there are pastors who see him as a religious figure, which takes a level of doublethink I do not understand. Yeah, I know. You're absolutely right, Ray. How anyone can see him as a religious figure when he's been divorced a few times, he cheats on his wives. Yeah, he's the epitome of what Trump is not supposed to be. Sandy asked, no luck on the reset, Vandalia. I don't know. Vandalia is no longer on the screen or, in the back room with me. So I don't know if he's coming back or what he's going to do at this point. I'm hoping he's able to come back and maybe we can resolve the issues. If not, we may end up ending this stream earlier. Here we go. Vandalia says, still resetting. I'm on my cell right now. Okay. Maybe that will work. Hans Hansen says, if I remember correct, it is one that believes that Trump is a Hindu god. I had not heard that one. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Ray. I could see people seeing him as the Antichrist. He seems more qualified for that. Yep, I definitely agree. Sandy says, slow reboot. It will work. We will send our thoughts to him, sending thoughts and good vibes toward Vandalia. Henry Mars says, I hope I'm not too late, fam. You are not too late. Vandalia is having some computer issues and is rebooting his computer, and hopefully we'll be back in a few minutes. Don't give up. I'm sure there's a song that starts that way. Yeah, I bet there is. Hello, Nitty. Hindu, I wonder what we did in a past life to become Trump. Oh, it must have been one horrific crime, sorry. Maybe Trump is the reincarnation of Hitler. Except, no, I guess that doesn't work. He'd have to have been born before Hitler died. I don't know how to pronounce that. In Ukraine, called Trump the Messiah, the Moshiach ben Joseph is seen as an antichrist role. The dual messiahs. Okay, interesting. I know what I'd like to talk about for a bit. Get ready for your barf bags because I want to talk about Dale Partridge. If you're not familiar with Dale Partridge, he's a very small-time pastor. He's really not a very significant person, but he is really trying to bring back head coverings for women. He's very into that the genders must be as God says they are. Here we go. Kevin says it's pronounced Chabad. Okay, thank you. Chabad Lobovic. Okay. Um, but anyway, Dale Partridge, he doesn't actually have a church because one of the things that he's into is home churches. He wants to basically abolish the big churches and have everyone have home churches. So he started a seminary where he's teaching men to lead home churches in their homes, and he's trying to help organize getting people to start home churches in their homes. But he's also very into, no women in leadership, and the thing that really gets my attention from him is he says men should control what women do on social media. A woman should not be able to be on social media without the consent and advice of her husband. And you know, I keep posting pictures of Muslim women on his Twitter page asking if that's really what he wants. Like that won't ramp up domestic abuse. Exactly. Exactly. Um, and Sandy says, I may barf. Yeah, I told you to have your barf bag ready. Here we go. Kevin's going to tell me how to say the second word. Lubavitch. Okay. It's all Nancy's choreography. Okay. That's, Ray Ray, that is a really good idea. That gives me an idea for some postings on his Twitter page. And the answer is no, it actually isn't. He really is for real. But what really, to me, he does look an awful lot like Commander, oh gosh, I can't remember his name, Serena's husband, the main commander from the beginning of the story. Um, and I did a video where I did draw a parallel between him and that commander, um, because there is a lot of parallel between the two of them. Henry Mars says, which women will accept to get married under these conditions, or are they planning forced marriages? Well, that's just the thing. He claims that women agree with him and women want this. And I do get that, because it's not so much that women want this as women get convinced that this is what God wants. And they get convinced of that because the religious leaders that they trust tell them that this is what God wants. And I got forced into it too, not as deep as Dale Partridge goes. The churches that I went to did not go so far as to say that women needed head coverings, nor did they say that, women need permission from their husbands, to be on social media and things like that. But it was very much a male-controlled thing, and we were told, that the man has all of the responsibility. It's the man's responsibility to take care of his wife and to take care of his family, and the man answers to God, and so the woman answers to the man, and as long as the man has your best interests at heart and he's doing what is best for you, then of course you should submit to that. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And yeah, it caused me a great deal of damage, which is why I get so upset with people like Dale Partridge. But yeah, it's not hard to get women into that. There are repugs who want to deny women the right to vote. Yes, there are. There are. I think that's supposed to be repubs. But yeah, and this is something I brought up to my own daughter, and my daughter didn't even believe me. But you're right. And another one that I thought was just absolutely flabbergasting was Marjorie Taylor Greene claiming that what she wants to do is pass a law that if you move from one state to another state, that you can't vote until you've been there for 5 years. Now, not just any move from state to state. It's if you move from a blue state to a red state. So if you are a Democrat and you move to a predominantly Republican state, you can't vote for 5 years. That's what she wanted to propose. Okay, Vandalia, how you doing?
Okay, are we all clear now? I can hear you. You can
Yes,
hear me. You can see me. I
we
can
can
do
hear
things.
you. We can hear you. Problem solved. Okay,
Hello.
wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so tell us about your channel. What do you do on your channel?
Well, I do a variety of things, really. I used to play games, but I don't do that much anymore because it takes a lot of editing now, and to be a good thing, I'm like I am too lazy to edit right now. I'm trying to learn, to, and but mainly I do podcasts where I talk about different subjects
Mm-hmm.
from games to science to history to movies, anything that either current or gets my guest interest. I've had
Okay, very good. Now, do you have any degrees in any of these areas, or is this just a topic of, you just, this is just a hobby?
hobby because I wanted to be a history teacher, but I failed at college miserably.
Okay.
I sucked at it big time.
Well, it's never too late to go back and try again.
That's right. But when I do have guests on about the subject, I like to have people that are knowledgeable on the subject if I can get
Okay.
them. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like I have Erica on as my primate expert.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I've had Erica on once and I've been trying to get her back, but some people it is really hard to get their attention. And
Yeah,
she's not impossible, but she's pretty difficult.
yes. Once this is going for a doctorate now, she's very hard to get.
Hmm.
Which is why my science section of my channel has gone down a little bit because all my science experts are doing science stuff. Not have time to be in the public eye. I guess they're actually trying to do work to help people. How dare they?
Okay. Okay.
Sarcastic there.
Um, Now, have you ever had any deniers, any young earthers or any flat earthers come and
What?
talk on your channel?
Not on my channel in chat.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I've definitely had people in chat saying that.
Saying what?
Oh, or flat.
They were saying that the earth was flat?
Yeah, and saying, oh, 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 they were saying, this one said, the vaccine is a globalist conspiracy from NASA to make us believe the globe Earth.
Okay. Yeah. There definitely were plenty of those. Although one thing that I was really proud of was how much YouTube took that down. YouTube really policed anyone giving out disinformation on that particular topic. I don't even want to name the topic because it flags too much. It flags your video for content. Uh,
I I actually did three topics. I actually did three different topics on that topic on my channel. Especially when the thing first started going around.
Sandy says, "Ridicule trolls trying to make up a new word." Okay, yeah, that does make for a good word. Ridicule trolls. That we will have to call them that. Ridicule trolls. Yeah, my question to flat earthers, and I don't engage with flat earthers much because I just don't even consider them worth my time. But the one question I would have to them is how thick do they think the earth is? I mean, because if the earth is like a half of it is like 100 meters thick, we should be able to dig through and find, the hole to the other side. And we've got buildings with basements that go 6, 8 floors down.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deepest hole is we've ever dug in the earth, but it
You know,
should be.
you know, I say the flat earthers though. If the
What?
Earth is really flat, then why are there mountains? Answer me that, flat earthers.
I don't know. Do flat earthers believe in tectonic plates?
I don't know. I haven't really sit down to ask him about one. I've done a video about flat Earth, but I did do a video about its side story, geocentrism, and why we know the Earth is the center of the universe, and how we go around the sun, not the other way around. Because everyone talks about how the Earth's flat, they don't talk about how the other stuff, the sun and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like why? So I had an expert on about space. I forget who it was, but how we know the Earth is going around the sun, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, another thing with flat Earth, or not, I'm sorry, not flat Earth, but I was engaging with a young Earther not too long ago, and he was asking, how is there marine life at the top of the Himalayas if there was no global flood? And I said, tectonic plates, the Himalayas were formed by the pushing up of the plates. And he said, I don't believe in tectonic plates. And I went, what? You don't believe in do you believe in volcanoes? Do you believe in earthquakes? How does an earthquake happen if there's no such thing as tectonic plates?
I think Spider-Man has more scientific knowledge than some of these young Earthers.
Mm-hmm. And BS not accepted is right. If the Earth were flat, cats would have pushed everything over the edge by now.
Oh, did you hear the joke? Did you hear the joke about dogs, cats, and God?
No.
I heard this a long time ago. Dogs look at us and say, "Wow, they feed us. They give us homes and pet us. They must be our God." And cats think, "Oh, they feed us, they pet us, they give us stuff. We must be their God."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I actually have heard that. I heard that in a sermon. Steve Bowman is here. YECs deny reality. Steve Bowman, if you don't know him, is a geologist. So we should go on to geology here.
Oh yeah. Oh, cool. I need a new geology expert to come on my channel eventually. You gotta send me information. We can talk after the show. But speaking of, but before we go on to that, I'd like to say I used to not joke, kind of joke, but like who's sometimes they're the same person, but who's the more dangerous, the stupid person, the YCers, the flat earthers, or the anti you know what?
That's a good question. And I think they really all belong in the same boat. I don't think we can separate them out.
Sometimes they're the same person most of the time. Sometimes, not all the time.
Right, right. But what I mean is that when the vaccine came out, people that were young earthers were just absolutely shocked that a lot of their people didn't trust it. And that they were trying to tell their own people, hey, you can trust this, go ahead and get the vaccine, this is a good thing. And they didn't realize that they were the ones that had set this up, that all of their science denial, all of their claims that geologists don't know what they're talking about, biologists don't know what they're talking about, geneticists don't know what they're talking about. All of this information that they've been putting out for years and years and years, trying to claim that the vast majority of the scientific community is so mistaken about everything that they don't know that you have to start with the Bible before you can come up with anything that's real and true. That is what set up people, that when the vaccine came out, they said, hey, we don't know if this is good. This comes from the same biologists that tell us that evolution is real. And we know they're wrong about that. So maybe they're wrong about the vaccine too.
Yes, it's funny about that though. Growing up, I spent 25 years of my life at church, but growing up,
Mhm.
I always thought, except for the few, to me they were, except for the few friends, far right wing people, that did the we pray and we don't need doctors because God will take care of everything. I always assumed that all of the anti-vaxxers were the far left side because the crystal things and all that stuff and the alternate medicine. But but after I left, and this thing, it's like it was always that way. It seemed like all the anti-vaxxers went from all the way to the right side of the spectrum instead of the left where I thought they were.
Mhm. Mhm.
A lot of people, church people that I knew growing up, were like what? Why are you stupid? Like what was I this stupid? I don't think I remember just being this stupid when I was still going to church.
I was, because I actually was a young earther at one time, but I've also always followed the evidence. And I've mentioned the story a number of times that young Earth for me broke as soon as I walked into the shed aquarium because they made the mistake of making a falsifiable claim. I was told by young Earthers that fish cannot grow lungs. And that's why we know that evolution doesn't happen because fish do not grow lungs. Then I went to the shed aquarium
With
and I
lungfish.
saw lungfish. And I read the description of what a lungfish is, and there they were right in front of me, still alive. Fish with lungs.
Yeah, even when I was still, I guess, a creationist kind of, I was still more old Earth than I was. I don't think I was ever young Earth. Because
Mhm,
even when I was 5 or 6, I was reading books about the prehistoric past. Even the pastor at the time talked about the gap theory thing. So
mhm, mhm.
so I was never did
Th
the young Earth.
That's where I went after, as soon as young Earth broke, that's exactly what I did. I switched to an old Earth view, and that's exactly what I did as well, a gap theory that the 24-hour, the day wasn't a literal day, it was a figurative day, and these days may have gone on for millions of years.
Yeah, yeah. I think I might be wrong, but I think he said that the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs was when Satan was throwing down the Earth. That was the asteroid. Quote quote.
That's an interesting theory. I've not heard that one. That's a very interesting theory. One thing I do want to engage with people who still hold to that mindset, because this was something I just never addressed, I just never thought about, is how do you reconcile Adam and Eve with an old earth view? Now,
Oh,
Dr. Swamidas has done a really good job of doing that. Basically, he has, Adam and Eve living alongside of other hominids and even other Homo sapiens, and that they were special not in that they were created special, but they were kind of separated out. They were the ones that introduced sin, and eventually the lines of everyone other than this pair died out so that everyone alive today comes from this pair.
well,
That's the way he reconciles
yeah,
it.
I know what I did when I was still fighting against it. When I was still, my slow transition away. I tried pushing back the flood date
Okay.
because
Okay.
because because obviously the flood happened because the Bible's true, quote quote. But I was like, but then how are we have Native Americans over in America 10,000 years ago if the flood happened 4,000 years ago? I'm like, that don't make any sense to me. So obviously the flood had to happen before 10,000 years ago. Duh. That was my trying to make it all fit together in my brain, and I still believed.
BS not accepted asked, oops, I got the wrong comment, sorry. Does William Lane Craig believe that? And the answer is not exactly. He has a slightly different take. His take is that all of Genesis 1 through 11 is mytho-history. It's not literal history. There is no literal Adam and Eve. There is no literal flood. These, Cain and Abel were not literal people. These are these are semi-historical in that there was a first people that sinned, but their names weren't necessarily Adam and Eve. That the stories didn't literally happen. They're more figurative. That they're based on myth, but there is some historical truth to them. That's his position. Uh, so where is the genetic bottleneck in the case of an Adam and Eve? God's chose 6,000 years ago. Very
Well,
good.
well,
Go ahead.
technically, it's a bottleneck of a bottleneck because even after they spread out, the Noah thing happened. That's two bottlenecks of the bottleneck of the bottleneck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to have a bottleneck with Adam and Eve, and then another one with the global flood. So when you were in old Earth, are you still held to a literal global flood?
Well, yeah, because obviously the Bible's right.
So how old were you when you finally left the faith?
Well, I started the journey when I was 29.
Okay.
Because before I was a 3 day a day churcher, Sunday morning, Sunday evenings, Wednesdays, and then of course revivals and VBSs. I went to all of them. Taught I taught the kids, did the thing. I even wanted to be a pastor, youth pastor for a while. It was my other life goals.
Interesting.
I even had a church puppet show.
Oh, nice. So you were in a puppet ministry?
Yeah,
Okay. You could translate that into, just doing puppet shows for kids
yeah,
outside of ministry. That could be a really good thing to have, a new thing. Atheist puppet shows.
nice. Yeah, but then they, my family left before I did because even though my family has always been mostly church going, they were
Mhm.
always on the left side, and especially in the 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, my church started going more right political.
Mm.
They were like,
Mm.
and they were like, you used to vote this way. You're not a real Christian. like,
Mhm.
like
That
what?
that's a little bit like what happened with me is I started getting more and more left. Um, I became increasingly liberal, and I don't know if the church became increasingly conservative and increasingly right, or if I just hadn't noticed it before. I'm really not
Yeah,
sure which one it is.
yeah. It might be a combination of both. Because the left's on all of them. Most people on the left side say Jesus was more liberal than he would have been conservative nowadays, and or vice versa. And like, no, he was a conservative, and blah blah blah. I don't. I have no idea what 2000 if he was a real person. I have no idea what 2,000 years ago opinion would be nowadays. Because 100 years ago, people that were progressive would be racist nowadays. So
Mhm.
times change.
Yes, yes, definitely so. I can even see that in my own lifetime. When I was a child, my parents were considered extremely liberal. Um, my dad was very supportive of the civil rights movement. He was very against the Vietnam War. He went and marched downtown with some of the war protesters. He although my parents were not hippies, they were very supportive of the hippie movement. So they were considered extreme liberals for their day. But I have heard my parents say things that were homophobic, um, because that wasn't on the radar yet. Being accepting of gay people didn't come until around the 90s.
Yeah, it goes both ways too. I've heard that some people that are considered very conservative in the 80s or 90s would be considered too liberal to be in the party today.
Mhm. Mhm.
So like both way, the spectrum goes all over the place.
Mhm. So you said your family deconverted before you did?
I don't say they converted; they left the church before I did. I think,
Okay, so they left the church, but they were still believers?
yeah,
Okay. Okay. So when you stopped believing, was that were they kind of like, "Oh, okay, that's no big deal then?"
Most of them, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Shadow Kitty says, "My parents raised a hippie." um,
But anyways, like I was saying, it was slow progress. First, I left at my main church because they were all that. I tried going to another church for a while, but then but the distrust was there already. So I moved there for 2 years on and off. Then I could go into church altogether when I was 31, but I was still I was a non I was a non church going believer at that point. I still believed stuff, but I didn't actually go anywhere because I can do this at my house. I don't need a church to do this.
mhm,
So
mhm,
like then then I started watching YouTube videos. Slowly, surely.
mm,
First the anti-creation videos, which was, I thought was hilarious. Then more and more of the God, not the anti-God videos, but why stuff like it kept on blowing up.
mhm. Um,
I know there was a slope for you, or if it was sudden.
well, that's an interesting question because at the time that it happened, I would have told you that it was sudden. And if you go back and watch the very first video that I ever made, which is entitled Why I Walked Away from 42 Years of Faith, I talk about how it was very sudden. But after I started hearing other people's stories of their deconversion, I realized it was not as sudden as I had thought because there are very definite points where there were fractures in my faith. And the first major fracture was when I reasoned my way into the divine hiddenness problem. And I did that about a year or two before I deconverted. Um, when I reasoned my way into the divine hiddenness problem, I essentially converted to universalism. But I still continued going to the same church that I did because I wasn't sure. Um, I invited the pastor over to kind of talk about some of the things that I was struggling with, although I didn't really articulate what the issue was. I certainly did not articulate that I was in a crisis of faith because even I didn't recognize it as that. It wasn't until my faith was completely shattered that I realized, it wasn't until long after that point that I realized that there were all these breaks that led up to it.
Yeah, like for me, the beginning of it, was when they started accusing all this stuff. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that. If you do this or that, and these people that I've known since I was in kindergarten. I did stuff with. It's like, wow, you turn on someone that easily, that you grew up there. Like, well, fuck you too then.
I actually had an issue with the opposite. Um, Specific story, and I've shared this story before. There was a man in our church that was a huge man. This was when I was in the height of my triathlon training, and so I was very small. He was 3 times my size. He was well over 300 pounds. He was well over 6 feet tall.
They were too friendly.
Oh yeah, and there were 6 different people that came to the pastor and complained about him being inappropriate with women in the church. And this was brought before the congregation and they were going to do church discipline. He didn't want to accept it, so he left the church. And about 2 months later, he was back. And the pastor made a big to do in the evening service that, he's accepted church discipline, he's repented, and we are all to welcome him back into the congregation. And at the end of the service, they had everyone come forward and welcome him back. When I welcomed him back, he grabbed my arm and pulled me. And I knew he was going for a full frontal hug, which I did not want. So I ducked my head Now, because he is so much larger than me, my head went into his belly. I mean, that's how much bigger he is. But I could not move. He had too firm a grip on my arm. The pastor was standing 2 feet away from us and never noticed that anything was wrong with that. And so my problem was being too forgiving.
Oh, well, before that happened, I was too forgiving.
Uh-huh.
Like, I always I said in the chat that I was bullied in school, so I let people push me around for a long time. But but people should, like you said, people should know you, and they're like, I've been here for 25 years. You never see me do any of this stuff, and all of a sudden all of a sudden, oh, I can't, I'm being accused of, like, well, you've known me since I was 5 years old, literally. I'm like, I spent
Mm-hmm.
felt like I wasted my life, my 20s helping out the church, and like wow, I wasted my 20s doing stuff for you guys. Wow, thanks for all the confidence.
You're still better off than I am. I wasted 42 years because I went into the church at the age of 16 and came out at the age of 50. I don't know, what was I, about 52, 53?
I might have been before I was 5, but I don't remember before kindergarten. But yeah, once I hit my 30s, I'm like, I was gone.
Actually, no, I was a lot older than that because I've only been an atheist for 4 years and I'm 62. So I guess I was 58 when I finally left the church.
I turned 43 in December,
Mm.
so I'm old too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, so when you did leave the faith, was there any change in your life at all then, or is it just more of a, I guess I just don't believe this anymore?
Yeah, that like I was the same person I've always been, just without the Bible reading and the praying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, the praying was a little bit hard to give up. It was such a habit that it it took me a few months to stop bowing my head before I would eat. And one thing that was really funny, my son made a comment about that as well. That um, just recently he said, "Oh, I was waiting for you to pray. I forgot we don't do that anymore."
Speaking of prayers and stuff, I always like to have I like to have arguments with people about that. How they say, if prayers were allowed in school still, we would still be doing this stuff. This stuff would be happening. I'm like, prayers are allowed in school. People can, kids can pray if they want to. No one's stopping them. I prayed in school.
Mm-hmm.
No one stopped
Mm-hmm.
me. It's just the teachers can't make you pray. That's the only difference is. Like I read the
Exactly.
Bible. I read the Bible in the study hall. Sometimes read it. It's not a big thing. It's not a classroom requirement. That's the only thing, and that's the thing they're fighting for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like know your arguments before you say them.
Yes. Yes. Now there is one caveat to that, and that is, because people want to be prepared for an argument, they want to, it's better not to know the whole argument as it's supposed to go, but rather be educated on the topic. And here's what I mean. You frequently see apologists tell their people, if you get into a conversation with an atheist, you say this, the atheist is going to say this, so you say this, and the atheist will say that, and this is what you answer. The problem is that we don't give the answers that the apologists claim that we're going to give, and that completely throws them off.
And you know why?
Because they're setting up straw men. They're not.
That's true too. But I was gonna say, because we're different people, we're not all this. We don't have all the same brain set.
Mm-hmm.
We're all talking. We think differently. Like we're not all like a hive mind, and they don't. They think all atheists are the same. All evolutionists are the same. All
Mm-hmm.
same answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But no, we. We're
But
different.
I see atheists making the same mistake. I see atheists going to various content creators or people in authority or in leadership and asking, okay, when somebody brings this up, what do I say? And that isn't really what we should be looking for. We don't want to know what to say. We need to know what is the educational background that I need to be able to respond to this topic. And that's why I think people like Steve Bowman are important and people like Professor Dave. Steve Bowman is doing some classes on geology that are available online. And Professor Dave has a lot of free courses in lots of different areas of science. I've learned a great deal from Professor Dave. I need to give him some money. I think I sent him one thing, but I need to send him some more because I've been going through some of his playlists and learning so much from him. Um, and when you have the background, then you can really address the topic instead of trying to address a specific issue.
Yes. This is why this is one reason I don't do any debates or anything. So I don't want to, I'm not that knowledgeable on stuff. So I don't want to make the site look bad.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I did a debate or two and made the mistake of trying to handle it the way I did competitive debates when I was in high school and college. And debate style in among adults is quite a different style of debate than what I did in competition in school.
Uh, Plus, I have major anxiety and stuff, and I'm afraid if they got me nervous, I just go off on them, and that's go on debates.
Mhm.
Like, what are you, stupid?
Yeah, I sometimes get frustrated with Matt Dillahunty because I think he flies off the handle too quickly. But not always, sometimes he's absolutely right. And it's hard to figure out where to draw the line though.
Uh,
There are some issues where you legitimately need to get emotionally upset. I mean, like the transgender issues. When people are wanting to legislate transgender people out of existence, that's the point where we should be getting emotionally upset.
like, I don't see the. I'm thinking back. Thinking back about it, using the same bathroom isn't like I don't really care that much because because you ever watched Boy Meets World back in the '90s? Were you too old for that?
Did I watch what in the
What
90s?
Boy Meets World?
No, I never watched that.
Well, when they went to college, they had a co-ed shower dorm where guys and girls could go in there at the same time. So I guess if somebody was transgender, it wouldn't have been a problem. Because
I lived in a co-ed dorm um, in college in 1979, and they were fairly new back then, but co-ed dorms meant, the dorm was 4 floors. The third floor was men. Floors 1, 2, and 4 were women, and the third floor was men. And, it really wasn't that big a deal. The only time I ever saw men was in the lobby or on the stairway, and that was it.
I guess that must have been really progressive for the '70s, '80s.
Mhm. Well, we are almost out of time here, so I'm going to let you plug your channel one more time. If anyone is not subscribed to Vandalia, the link to his channel is in the description, so you can go over there and check out his content.
Cool.
And I do want to go ahead. Go ahead. You tell them a little bit more about your channel.
Like I said, I do stuff every Saturday. I have a podcast, different topics. In about an hour and a half at 7, I'm going to have RJ Downer and Galo Designier on my channel talk about intelligent design and why isn't that intelligent.
Okay, very good. That sounds like fun. And coming up on my channel next week, we will have Randall Rouser on. Now, Randall Rouser is a believer. but his beliefs are very different from the norm of Christian beliefs. And so as a result, a lot of Christians consider him an atheist, although he really isn't an atheist either. But and so that should be a good discussion. And then right after that discussion, I am going to Purple's channel and am doing a show with Purple on people who remember time before the internet. And that should be an interesting discussion on difference in life before and after the internet. So with that, thank you everyone in the chat for coming. I'm sorry you had the computer issues, but at least we finally got it together and we were able to have a decent show here.
Awesome.
Okay.
And I'll see you on my show in about a month from now.
Yes. And I will be appearing on Vandalia's show. Yep. Okay. Live your life.